Hello and welcome back to Arsenal Domination, where we are less than 24 hours away from kick-off in the Premier League. Everton will take on Arsenal at Goodison Park for the very final time. Um, let's talk about Arsenal for how we first coming into this one. Arsenal, as we know, have significant injury issues. It's been the story of the season. Just as it started to get better with the attackers, with Saka and Martinelli coming back, we start to see defenders drop. So we know that Tomiyasu is unavailable. We know Calafiori is unavailable. We know Gabriel is also unavailable after that significant injury the other day that I've spoken at length this week with a series of shorts. Please do go and check them out. But we know that Timber, who got a knock against Fulham, and White, who was unavailable for that game through injury, are both going to be late decisions for Mikel Arteta, who characteristically was very coy in the press conference earlier today on their availability. The loss of Gabriel is obviously the biggest one. He's been our best player this season. I think he's player of the season for me. And our win percentage without him dropped significantly. It dropped by 20% from 64 to 44%. So that shows his significance to the team. And I've spoken about how he covers that left-hand side, allowing that left back to go forward into midfield, which, whether you like it or not, has been quite a successful tactic for Arsenal overall. But of course, it does leave that side as the weak point. And Arsenal will have a choice of who comes in there. For this one, I think it will be Kivior, and I think that's a sensible choice because of the doubts over White and Timber, and the significance, I think, of Timber for the Real Madrid game. And I think if there's any doubt about Jurgen Timber, he's the one that needs to make sure he does not play in this game to be fit for the Real Madrid game. Of course, Saliba will be the most important, but as far as we're aware, he's not the one suffering any kind of ill effects going into this game, and that's why Timber's the one that needs the precaution. But that sort of does lead you to the question about Arsenal and what do they do for this game? Do they rest players or do they not? And it is a difficult one for Mikel Arteta. The league is gone. There's no question about that. We're not going to catch Liverpool bar something spectacular. Champions League, I think, will be there. I think Arsenal will qualify for the Champions League. But Forest are still breathing down the neck, although they have lost Chris Wood. And Champions League isn't secure yet. I think, as I say, I think we will, but you can't just afford to throw away Premier League games. And Everton is definitely a tough one. We drew 0-0, of course, at them at the Emirates, and they play in a style that Arsenal have struggled all season to break down. So what do Arsenal do to rest players or not? And it is a difficult one. My gut feeling is it's a mixture of both. I think ideally you'd want to get MLS, Rice, Odegaard and Saliba a rest, but with the injuries, I don't think all of that is possible. And I think Mikel Arteta will have to make some difficult decisions, particularly when you throw in the fact that Martinelli is just coming back off an injury, White and Timber potentially coming back off injuries, and Saka, of course, coming off injuries. You can't rest all of those, so he's going to have to pick and choose, and I think a lot of this will come down to what the sports scientists say. What else do I think? I think attacking wise, I think the team's looking in a lot better shape, and it did look a lot better against Fulham. Not perfect, not totally fluid, but much better. Martinelli in particular having a really good game, and that'll be an interesting choice there. Do you rest him, given you've got Trossard available ahead of Real Madrid, or does he go 3 games in 7-8 days and try and sort of keep that momentum after that positive performance against Fulham? So they're the decisions sort of embracing Arteta. And I'll come on to the team and the predicted lineup in a minute from me. But it is going to be very, very challenging for Arsenal. I think the good news for them is that the game will probably be less intense because of the way Everton play. And that sort of leads me nicely on to what Everton will do. Everton are going to be a very traditional David Moyes team. They are somewhat limited going forward, both in terms of personnel and because they have a quite conservative manager. But they are going to sit back and fall back into a low block. Something Arsenal have struggled to break down all season. I've spoken a lot about the fact that Arsenal need to move the ball faster and try and penetrate them by moving the ball quickly rather than sideways and slowly, because that just allowed Everton to sort of move and block the passing lanes. That's much harder to do when you're moving the ball quickly and with intensity. But they will also look to hit on the break and play for set pieces. We saw the threat that they have on the break against Liverpool, where Beto, I think, hit the post. But they will also play for set pieces. They are very, very good. They have one of the best records in the league, both defending and attacking set pieces this season. And that will make them a threat. And Arsenal will have to be very, very careful not to give away silly corners or free kicks in and around the box, because Everton will look to take advantage of that, and they are very, very good at that. So that's sort of the Everton threat and sort of the choices facing Mikel Arteta. Um, so what do Arsenal do about it? I think Arsenal will go strong for this one. It's the Mikel Arteta way. He tends to do it that way, and also he will know of the jeopardy that Arsenal are in if they do drop too many points in the league, and he doesn't have many choices with the amount of players out. Um, I got the 11 spot on against Fulham. I think this one's much trickier because we just don't know who's going to be available. So I think it'll be Raya in goal. I think Ben White will be fit. And if he is, I think you play him there and rest Timber, as I say. If neither are fit, it's going to be Thomas Partey at right back, or if there's doubts about Timber at all, it's Thomas Partey at right back. But I've gone for Ben White, and I think it'll be Saliba and Kivior, and I think that's probably sensible, despite the fact I'd like Saliba to get a rest because it helps build a chemistry between the two of them, because I think that could well be the starting partnership against Real Madrid, unless Timber and White are fully fit, at which point that could be a choice. But putting Saliba and White against Real Madrid with no sort of time playing together could be risky. So I think it'll be those two, and then I think it'll be Tierney or Zinchenko at left back. And I really don't know which one Mikel Arteta will pick, but I've gone with Tierney. So a lot of talking there in between. So I'm just going to recap that back four. It's White, Saliba, Kivior and Tierney. A midfield then of Jorginho and Partey. I think Rice will probably start, but I'd like to see it Jorginho and Partey, or Jorginho and Rice, depending on which one is less fit out of the two and needs the rest. Odegaard at 10, Wanyeri, Trossard and Moreno. I think the other choice for Arsenal is if he wants to start Saka and get him 60 minutes, is to rest Odegaard if he needs a rest. He's looked in and out of form this season and hasn't looked fully back to his best since that injury back in the autumn in October. And then play Wanyeri in the 10, but I think it will be Wanyeri, Trossard and Odegaard sort of behind Moreno. And I think Arsenal will win this game 2-1. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. But before I go, I just want to touch on two things. James Tarkowski is going to be available for Everton. He wasn't sent off and should have been sent off against Liverpool. Let's be totally honest about this. But again, and I've mentioned this a long times on the channel about abuse towards referees and Arsenal players, Havertz, racist abuse, Miles Lewis, Skelly has got, and others. It's just not acceptable. And James Tarkowski receiving the abuse he has this week is also unacceptable. And I really think that football as a wider community needs to start having a look at these issues. And then lastly as well is, and I mentioned this in the David Roycastle tribute I did earlier in the week. Again, please go and check that out on the channel. You can find it in the shorts section. But there's, in the 9th minute of this game, Kevin Campbell, his life is going to be remembered. The former Arsenal and Everton striker. In the 9th minute, Arsenal and Everton fans will hopefully unite in 60 seconds of chanting Super Kevin Campbell. If you are going to the game, please make sure you take part. That's all from me. Let me know, as I say, what you think the lineup should be and what the score will be, and I will speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.